Virginia Senator Tim Kaine is back with me now. Senator, you know these 6 Republicans, and I would venture to say that I think they're working in good faith as economic conservatives to do what they think is fair. It may not be what you think the right thing is, but I do think that this does represent some form of bipartisanship.
I agree. I very much agree. And Ali, I'll tell you, I think the bill that we'll ultimately vote on in the Senate will include many priorities that Republicans have put on the table. However, I still expect virtually all of them to vote against the bill because of Senator McConnell saying our agenda is to battle Joe Biden. We may get a couple of votes. We'll certainly have a bill filled with priorities that Republicans like, but I expect most will follow Mitch McConnell's lead and oppose Joe Biden because he's a Democrat.
It's strange, though. I mean, it's not that we're surprised by it because Mitch McConnell's the guy who called himself the Grim Reaper of bills. But it was strange to hear it. It was so stridently anti-democratic. It was so stridently anti-compromise when he said, that's 100% of my agenda. He subsequently walked it back a little bit because he faced some criticism. But that's a problem. He wasn't saying, I will work with Democrats to make better legislation or legislation that's a little bit different than they propose.
No, I was shocked that he was so blunt, but I think he was being honest. And I think the walk back was barely a walk back. And look, that's why we have to be realistic about this. The nation needs an infrastructure bill. We've been needing one for decades. And the jobs report this month just underlines we've got a long ways to go. The bill will be better if President Biden and Senate Democrats listen to Republican colleagues and put things in the bill that are good ideas that they have. I introduced a bill about 10 days ago with Roger Wicker to modernize the nation's shipyards. It was a bipartisan bill. It should be in an infrastructure plan, but I don't think a lot of Republicans are going to vote for the ultimate plan. So, my thought is we should listen as best we can. We should put priorities in that are great for the country. That will include bipartisan priorities, but we shouldn't be unrealistic to think we're going to see a land rush of Republican votes. This will be bipartisan because it'll be popular with Republican voters, Republican mayors, Republican governors. We may not get a lot of Republican senators to vote for it.
So I want to put up a screen here with some of the elements of the American Jobs Plan, right? Some people call it an infrastructure plan. It's sort of broader than that, or at least it's a new way of thinking about infrastructure. Transportation infrastructure, the first thing on the list. Sounds like something Republicans can support. Safe drinking water, high-speed broadband, power infrastructure. Then we get to affordable and sustainable housing. That might be debatable to some Republicans. Public schools, community colleges, and child care facilities seems bipartisan to me. Workforce development seems bipartisan. And home community-based care for aging relatives and people with disabilities. Republicans are definitely taking issue with that as infrastructure. But the first 4 things on that list are entirely bipartisan. Not only that, I might have thought in prior years or decades that that's a Republican bill.
Right. And Ali, even you get to your second slide, things like workforce development, not a single Republican in the Senate will disagree with this proposition. If we're going to do an infrastructure bill, we've got to do some significant training of the workforce to do it. Bridges and roads don't build themselves. So we're going to need to equip workers. And particularly when we got a lot of adult workers that are still unemployed or underemployed, it's the perfect time. So there are some of the educational components that you might not think of as core infrastructure that we have to do if we're going to do an infrastructure bill.
Senator, it is good to see you as always. Thank you for joining me. We have much more to talk about, and I hope that you and I get to revisit this idea of an infrastructure bill that has some bipartisan support or input. Democratic Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia.